Welcome. I'm Larry Seaman for Salem Community Television, and we're streaming live here at Veterans Common today to help celebrate the Lions Club's annual Christmas tree lighting ceremony. Now we have some guests here today, and they are Gary Azarian from the Zoning Board, and of course Joe Sweeney. We'll be back in just a minute. All right, we've got some representatives from the Salem Lions Club as well as other people to talk to just before the event begins. Bob Elliott,
Hi Larry, how are you?
who's the president of Lions Club, and tell us a little bit about your role with the Lions Club and also what's going to happen today.
Well, I'm the president of the Lions Club, but I don't do anything.
You don't do
because
anything,
I have
okay.
such a hard-working group of people.
And you have Barbara
Carol,
to tell you, right?
and Barbara tells me what to do
That's
all
right.
the time.
Yeah.
And Carol Salvatore is the chairperson with a wonderful committee to do this traditional Christmas Eve lighting of the tree ceremony. And we're very happy to be here and start this Christmas season together with the people of Salem, New Hampshire.
Well, as we introduced, the show was this is for family and friends to get together and bring in the holiday season. Am I right?
Yes, it's wonderful when the children start singing. Everybody
Yes,
enjoys them.
by all means,
It's
yeah.
traditional. Amy does a wonderful job with them every year, and we're looking forward to that.
We are the tree lighting committee, Patty and I, and we got our Greystone staff actually to come help decorate the gazebo for us.
That's
Yes.
good. That's good.
So it was very nice. Yes.
All right. And any other people that have joined in to help you out with it?
Well, Ann Priestley has been a big help to me throughout it all. I mean, she had always helped in the past, and she just gives me guidance along the way.
Okay. And let's see if we can get Gary Azarian or anybody else who wants to come on over for a minute. And Joe, why don't you come on over too? Just your thoughts on this event.
I think it's a wonderful event. It's a tradition that they've had here in Salem, and I'm so honored that they asked me to say a few words on what Salem means to me and my family in town. And the weather's nice. It's not, well, it'd be nice if it was snowing,
Yeah,
Larry, but
right,
it's not
right,
raining
right.
and it's not overly cold. It's going to be a great event.
Right. And you've been a part of. Did you grow up in Salem?
I did grow up in Salem. I've had 54 Christmases here in Salem. I'm 54, obviously. And my family has celebrated 116 Christmases in Salem, going way back to my great-grandparents who settled here in 1898.
I would imagine this is what you're going to be talking about a little
I
bit.
will touch a little on that as I talk about what Salem means to the Azarian family in Salem.
Okay.
And it's a story I'm hoping that everyone will enjoy. And it's a theme of all families. It's just a theme of family and togetherness and what the holidays, and especially the Christmas holiday, means to us.
Great. Well, Merry Christmas to you. Happy
Merry Christmas to you,
holidays, or
too.
whatever you want to call it. But I do wish you the best.
Thank you, and thanks for having us.
Our first speaker tonight is lifelong resident whose family actually settled here in 1898. It's State Rep Gary Azarian.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here tonight and speak at the tree lighting. It's a tradition that's gone on in Salem for many, many years. And as the speaker said, I've been fortunate to spend, in my lifetime, 54 Christmases here in Salem. And now everyone in town knows that I'm 54 years old. When Ann Priestley first asked me a couple of months ago if I'd say a few words at the tree lighting, I said, absolutely. I said, just let me know what you want me to read, and I'll read it. And a couple of weeks later, I was standing with Kathy, her daughter, at the landfill. We were campaigning together, and I was talking to Kathy, and Kathy said, my mom says you're going to speak at the Christmas tree lighting. I said, yeah, as soon as she gives me the poem or whatever it is I'm going to read, I'll read it. And she says, oh, no, Gary. You don't read a poem. You have to write something and read it, and what Christmas means to you or your family in Salem. So on the ride to Concord yesterday, and it's a 45-minute ride, I said to Bob Elliott, we went up together, I said, Bob, I'm going to, give you an overdraft of my speech, and let me know what you think. So I started at exit 2, and bear in mind it's a 45-minute ride, so the speech or the story won't be more than 45 minutes long. I finished by the time we got to exit 4, by the way, so don't get worried. So I've been fortunate, and the Azarian family's been fortunate, that we've been in town since 1898, as Carol said. My great-grandparents settled here. They've been settled here 116 years ago. And Christmas, when I was a kid, in the 60s and 70s, and the early 80s, was a wondrous event for our family. And at that time, we lived on Cross Street. In my grandmother's house, and my Uncle Arthur's house, and my parents' house, we were right next to each other. And on Christmas Eve, we would alternate. One year would be at Grandma's, and one year would be at my Uncle Arthur's, and one year would be our house. And we'd go to church on Christmas Eve, and then we'd come home, and it was whatever house it was, there'd be 40 or 50 people in that house, between adults and children. And it was a great time. The family would be together. We'd have the traditions, a lot of food, a lot of presents, and it was just a time where we all came together and gave thanks and celebrated the Christmas season. Things have changed a little bit now. We still celebrate in Salem, but my brother's married, my cousins are married, so we all go our separate ways, and we celebrate still as family, but it's changed a little bit. But I think back to 1898 when my great-grandparents first moved here, and they were here alone, and they settled in December, which is kind of ironic. And that first Christmas here, they couldn't read English or write English. They were immigrants. And they spent that first Christmas alone in that little cabin on Cross Street that they were able to build over that wood stove. And I kind of think of what they might have thought, how they're going to go on, raise a family, and the uncertainties that they had to start out. Well, their family grew. My grandfather Peter was born, and then my Aunt Alice was born, and they still celebrated in that same house. But the one thing that struck me is the gifts that they gave, or the gifts that they saved for. Not like today, it was gifts that were useful to them, and it's gifts that, we don't think of as gifts anymore, we think of necessities. My grandmother would always yell at me, close the ice box, like the ice was gonna melt, because that was one of the first things that they got, was an ice box in the early 1900s. And then they saved and they bought themselves a phone, and a phone at that time was a luxury. And I remember having an old calendar, and it said, to call Rose or Peter or Hovagam, you'd ring 2812 and you turn the old crank. I think the first extravagant gift they bought, my grandfather bought my grandmother a camera, and it was one of those old black box cameras from the 20s, which I still have, and that started her love of photography. And she was a horrible photographer. I mean, she'd take a picture, you'd have her thumb in your face, and it'd be upside down in half the sky. But you loved it, and she put it in the photo album, and it was a memory of the family in a lot of Christmas pictures. Well, around the late 50s, he bought her a movie camera, an 8mm movie camera. And that was even worse for her, because you had your foot or the sky or the light bulb with those huge lights. I don't know if anyone remembers those huge lights. Well, she recorded all the Christmases. And it was a wonderful thing that she did for our family, because we go back, we put them on video now. I know video's a thing of the past. Now they're on DVD or whatever we call it. But we go back and we watch all the old Christmases. That's a tradition we have now from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And we have a chance to say, there's my grandmother because now she's gone. Or my Uncle Arthur because he's passed on and he's no longer with us. And it gives us a sense of the togetherness that they started for us when they first moved here 116 years ago, and how the family still stays together even though they're past, and how we can celebrate with them by cherishing those moments. So at this Christmas season, I'd like to say Merry Christmas to all of you and your families, in the hope that you always have something like that to cherish in your future, so you can remember the Christmases past. Thank you very much for having me. Bye-bye.